This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forests to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. We have a special affinity for the land, don't we? And why wouldn't we? Everything that we need in life comes from the land. Take a look around you. Everything you see in this room originally came from the land. Wood, stone, metal, the clothes on your backs, the food in your bellies. The land provides for us, and then some. So no wonder we have such a wonderful affinity for it. No wonder we celebrate it in verse and sing songs about it. But we're losing some of our connection to the land. In the Middle Ages, 95% of people worked on the land. It was their only economic asset. You made the land work, or you had nothing at all. Today, in the US, only about 2% of people work on the land. So we're losing some of that connection. The story I'm going to tell you today is about people whose only economic asset is the land underneath their feet. They have to make that land work, or else. In particular, I want to tell you about one person. His name is Caterino. He's a Mayan farmer. He lives in the small village of Chiox, and that's about 30 miles north of Coban in the central Guatemalan highlands. Now, Coban is a pretty modern town. There are fast food restaurants. There's a Starbucks. You can get a skinny latte with a double shot of vanilla, although Caterino is not a skinny latte kind of guy. He's got 1 hectare of land, that's all, and he's got to make it work. But Caterino, he's got a problem, and his problem is a food gap. You see, his farm size is only 1 hectare, and the corn he grows, his main crop, he can only get about 0.8 of a hectare of corn from that land. Now his family needs 1.8 hectares of corn just to survive. So he has a food gap of 1 metric ton of corn per year. So what does he do? How does he fill that? Well, he walks. He walks with the other able-bodied men and women and sometimes children in his village to a different part of Guatemala where he picks fruit. But the road back to Chiox can be very dangerous. He's got a little money in his pocket, and there's plenty of bandits on that road. This is not a very easy life at all. So why is it that he has to go and pick fruit? Why can't his land provide for him? Because quite simply, it is overworked and unproductive. It hasn't been nurtured for decades, maybe even centuries. The basic minerals that grow crops are simply not there, so the soil can't produce. Now this is Caterino's story, but it could easily be Teresa and her kids here in Tanzania. It could easily be Abdul and his family in the Central Plains of India. There are 400 million smallholder families all around the world, and they all have the same problem. They're stuck in a never-ending cycle of poverty. The land, their only economic asset, is not able to provide for them, so they struggle, generation after generation after generation. In 2008, the Mosaic Villages Project was formed with the intention of trying to move these farmers, these subsistence farmers, to a surplus, where they would not only have enough food to eat, they would actually have some more to sell. In Guatemala, we partner with Helps International, a local nonprofit. In Africa, in 7 African countries, with Millennium Promise. And in India, with the Institute of Rural Research and Development. And it's very simple. There are 5 basic pillars. 5 basic pillars to take farmers out of poverty. Partnership, soil health, water, finance, and market linkage. The very, very first thing is partnership. And what's the basis of any partnership? It's trust. If you can't trust somebody, you can't partner with them. But that's a problem in these villages, because these are 18th century villages. They may only be about 100 miles from a major urban center, but they're 100 years behind in development. They're closed. They don't trust outsiders. So the first thing you do is you talk to people. You find out what are their local concerns. What are their fears? What are their hopes? What's really important to them? So we started talking to Caterino, and we discovered something about this corn. This wasn't just food to him. Corn's a god. Corn is sacred. It's been passed down through generation after generation of his ancestors. He's not going to use any modern corn seeds, which would give him a much bigger yield. We're going to have to work with the basic heirloom seeds because they're so sacred to him. Now this is a problem because these seeds don't produce that much, but they do make very tasty food, and I've had the black corn tortillas they make, and if I was going to eat tortillas 3 meals a day, every day, I'd want to eat these tortillas. They're very, very tasty. So we go in, and the first thing we do is we set up a test plot. So what is a test plot? A test plot is a small piece of land where we're actually going to use some more modern agricultural techniques to show them the difference between their traditional farming practices and what can be done. After a few weeks, it becomes pretty obvious that our corn is way, way taller than theirs. It's much more densely packed in rows. The farmers are curious, and they come over and they go, how'd you do that? The first year, we might get at most 3 people to join us. Year 2, it's 30. Year 3, it's 300. They can simply see the results. Now, this is all based around one very, very simple concept: balanced nutrition, looking after the soil. Remember, the soil is our only economic asset. That's all we have to work with. These soils have been depleted of nutrients. We've got to put the nutrients back in. So we take some phosphate, which actually comes from Florida, an ancient seabed, nutrients from an ancient seabed. We add magnesium, and we add sulfur and some micronutrients, potassium, iron. These might sound familiar to you because they're pretty much not that different from the things you take in your multivitamin each day. Plants and humans are remarkably similar. All life comes from the same basic minerals. So we properly fertilize the soil. Now in Guatemala, we use no-till agriculture. We don't break the soil. The farmers traditionally burn off all of the crop residue from the year before. We don't want to do that. We want that organic matter. It's going to add extra nutrients to the soil, plus it's going to help the soil retain water. We show them how to grow in rows. Traditionally, they take the seed and they throw it to the wind. We show them how to plant much more densely. We show them how to double crop. So they plant beans in between the corn. Beans and corn go very well on the dinner table, but they also go very well together in the field as well. And by taking up that land mass, not very many weeds can grow. By not breaking the soil in this no-till manner, you don't really need to use any pesticides because there aren't near as many pests. But I want to take you into Caterino's village. I want to show you what his life is really like. So here you see the beautiful hills of Guatemala. They're home to hundreds of poor, small farm communities. The land is rough here. These are no Iowa cornfields, rough mountainous terrain. The people who live here are called gente de maíz, corn people, because their ancestors gave them this gift of corn. It's been passed down generation after generation. It's sacred to them. It's part of every single meal. The farmers gather before they plant to bless the corn and ask for the grace of the gods. When they go to the field, they perform a certain form of benediction to bless the field again. Here you'll see that last year's crop residue is still on the top, and you'll see the soil has not been broken. And to establish trust, we bring Mosaic agronomists in to meet with them personally and talk to them so they can get to know each other. This is a very face-to-face social society. The farmers, of course, or the agronomists, of course, also teach them some modern agricultural techniques, like growing in rows. The tools used are really simple. It's just a bamboo staff to break the soil. The seed is popped right in that hole. Here you can see them using a piece of twine to mark out a row. And the crop nutrients are measured using a soda bottle cap. So the nutrients go right on top of the seed, where they can fertilize the seed, go right up into the plant to make the plant grow bigger. And it limits any chance of the nutrients running into the water supply, so we protect their ecosystem. After 3 years, yields have increased 3 to 5 times over traditional farmer practice. They've gone from having a food deficit, a food gap, to having a surplus. Now they're not only well fed, they can take some of this food to market and actually sell it. This makes a profound difference in their lives. Now these farmers have never had corn to sell before. They don't really know the basics of economics. So we need to help them connect to the market. We need to tell them how to sell. The market can be a pretty dodgy place. It's very, very easy to get ripped off. So they have to know the basics of economics. Now that they have this surplus, now that they have some money coming in, they can begin to buy other things they need. It could be as simple as some furniture for their home. You know, maybe a new roof for their house. School books for their children. Medical supplies. A loom. Now all of a sudden you have a cottage industry and other ways to make money. Fertilizer is acting here like an insertion of capital into their economy.
O sea, nosotros estamos aprendiendo bastante con los ingenieros que vienen. Nos han enseñado cómo se siembra, cómo echarle el abono incluso de la milpa. Sacamos más cosecha y los niños o mis hijos los que nos piden, yo puedo vender un poco de maíz y comprar lo que ellos quieren.
You know, I know the thing that Catarino is most proud of is the fact that his children have shoes on their feet, they go to school, and they have school books. Me as a parent, that really resonates with me when I think of all the things I'm able to offer my child. We don't know how lucky we are sometimes. One of the most exciting things that we've discovered recently about the projects is that they're naturally expanding. The farmers from the surrounding area are coming over and going, how'd you do that? And these farmers are teaching them. We're not even involved in this, but the yields in all of the areas around are beginning to increase. It's like throwing a pebble into some still water and watching the ripples move out. It's really exciting. Now, one very, very important thing to note is that we're trying to help these farmers learn how to farm, not just from the agronomy and the soil perspective, but also from the financial perspective. Farms are businesses. So this is not a handout. This is not some charitable program. It's a partnership. It's a hand up. What we do is we give them loans. Loans at planting, which they repay at harvest. 97% of the loans are repaid. And in fact, after 3 years, most of the farmers don't even need loans anymore. They've saved up enough cash. They're very, very fiscally responsible people. And they're able to buy any inputs, any nutrients themselves. So you can see that we are able to move farmers from subsistence to surplus. And this alone is a success. But it's not the end game. There is something bigger at play here. Tonight, 850 million people will go to bed hungry. We currently do not successfully feed all the people on our planet. By 2050, we are going to have 2 billion more mouths to feed. Our population is going to grow from 7 billion to 9 billion. And all of the best agricultural land, it's all used up. We can't simply deforest. That will create another whole host of problems. So what are we going to do? Now, it is true that 40% of the food we grow goes to waste. Some of it rots in the fields. Some of it goes to waste in a bin in the farmer's storage area. Some gets lost in processing and transportation. I can guarantee you right now, as I'm standing on this stage, there is food rotting in my fridge at home. No matter what we do, we're not going to be able to eliminate all food waste. So the only potential solution is to grow more food on our current land footprint. And that's called sustainable intensification. It is the only sustainable way forward for our planet. That's why it's so important that farmers like Catarino, like Abdul, like Teresa, can increase their yields. When we can increase yields by 3 to 5 times, we have the beginnings of a solution. Because by 2050, we're going to have 2 billion more mouths to feed, and most of them in the developing world. Now, this is not organic agriculture. This is not conventional agriculture. What it is it's sustainable agriculture. We're basically taking the root of agriculture, the soil, and we're making that soil fertile and able to produce for us. The soil has always looked after us, and it will, if we give it the opportunity to. This land is your land. This land is my land. This land was made for you and me. Will you sing with me now again? This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forests to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.